Now we're going to be listening to Simeon Peterkowski and Liana Thompson, members of the Aquaai team. Aquaai is a robotics startup located in Silicon Valley, designing robotic fish or bio-inspired vehicles. These BIVs can be used to inspect, detect, survey, and clean beneath the surface of the ocean. The vehicles can also stream videos to connect those of us on dry land with our neighbors underwater. Their goal is to see reality, to change human behavior, to save life. The panel would like to begin their presentation with a video.
When you try your best but you don't succeed, when you get what you want but not what you need, when you feel so tired but you can't sleep, stuck in rivers, and the tears come streaming down your face, when you lose something you can't replace, when you love someone but it goes to waste, could it be worse? Lights will guide you home. And ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. And high up above or down below, when you're too in love to let it go, but if you never try you'll never know just what you were. Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you.
Thank you for having us, and for everybody who came here who loves and cares about the ocean, and for the invite by Sustainable Oceans Alliance. I hope you enjoyed our film. We are Aquaai. We're a startup. We haven't been around that long, about a year and a half. Simeon and I actually met when I was in Israel, and I had heard about a crazy inventor who was making robots. A robotic fish specifically to save the seas. So he told me all about it when I met, and when we relocated back here to my home, actually also California, part of the California contingent here, we went to work right away on how we can take the robotic knowledge of Simeon and apply it to saving our seas. it was important for us to actually show you our journey since we formed a company as Aquaai, as a startup. You can see that we have everyone from friends and the team to our children who are all participating in growing the robots. We started out with a clownfish because everybody loves Nemo. And with the clownfish, we got our fin propulsion patents. And then are applying the same fin propulsion system to various bio-inspired fish to actually do cleanup, various cleanups, both from plastics, oil spills, anything floating at this stage anyway, including invasive plant species. So that was important for me to show you as millennials that you don't have to wait for the corporations, you don't have to wait for the policymakers. You can actually say, what can I do to participate in doing something meaningful in cleaning our oceans and our waterways? Like Rachel pointed out, a lot of the issues are where the land and the sea meet. So we're also focusing on that, at least in our initial stage. Where the waterways of the Bay, the Delta, the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta are pollutant before they hit the bay and get into the ocean. So for me and for Simeon, it was very important to show you that you can do it. Even when you think you can't, and you work the long hours and whatnot, you can make a robot fish or whatever you find, whether it's your ball, which I love, by the way, and I'm sure you know the sound of a 3D printer because we have 2 of them going in our house at any given moment. And right when the print is almost done, something goes wrong and you have to start all over again, and you can't go to Boy Scout camp, or you can't do all the things that you planned on doing because of that. You need to get the print done. We unveiled last summer in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho at a robotics AI festival called Think Big, and it was really special for us because that robot, which everyone was thinking, what is this? Actually swam for 8 hours.
Pretty much
8 hours in the Lake Coeur d'Alene. And so one more thing before I pass the conversation over to Simeon. Doug, who is our co-founder, who is a millennial, unfortunately could not make it. He says sorry and hello, and he's our lead programmer, Wiz, and the reason why he's with the team, besides being a wonderful person and a brilliant mind, is that he could answer the one question correctly when we were interviewing a lot of programmers from all over the globe. Was,
can you think like a fish?
Again?
Can you think like a fish?
And his answer was?
Yes, I can. What type of fish?
And when we met Doug, and he's like, well, what type of fish? They all think differently. It's like, he's the guy. So anyway, I am sorry that he's not the millennial aspect of the company here at the conference for you guys, because you will enjoy him. But he is on our team, and as we look to the future, Doug is a special element of making sure we don't just look at the past, but also look at the future, and together we actually look at the now. So, and Simon's going to tell you a little bit more about the now and about our products and what we're building.
So essentially, what is one of the problems? If you look at the vast world, you've got 1 billion people staying on coastal waterways. In the US, it's about 123 million people stay on coastal waterways. And when I say coastal waterways, I mean waterways in general, rivers, lakes, and so on. The biggest problem in those areas is that if you look at plastics, just plastics enlarged, there's accumulated of about 14 hectic tons of plastic that flows through waterways every year. And all of that goes to the oceans. So our point was, there's a huge problem, and it seems to be a disconnect. On the one hand, you've got vast majority of people that are living in those waterways that have no idea. Until it comes to like an area like Lake Michigan, where everybody just woke up one day and said, hey, wait a minute, what's in my waterways? So we thought, okay, fine, what is happening in those waterways? Once pollution starts to take its form, whether it's invasive plants or whether it's plastic pollution, the water dies off. When the water dies off, the environment dies off, the community dies off. So we thought, okay, fine. Let's make a system that is easy enough to fabricate in those economically depressed areas and teach robotics, because as we all know, robotics is coming up. So once you do that and you start immersing the community with robotics and bringing up the community that they earn a normal paycheck, it's basically changing the path for the community. They get inspired. The entire community starts to understand about their own waterways. We go one step further and we say, okay, fine. While we're there and cleaning up the invasive plants, let's bypass all the rules. Let's upload the data that we take. Let's share that data with everybody in that community, whether it's arsenic, mercury, whether it's plastics or invasive plants, and upload it and show people the reality of their own ecosystems. And by doing that, if you look at the vast majority around those systems, imagine 123 million people waking up in the morning and understanding what's really in their water systems. You'll get a different surprise. Those 120 million people will wake up and say, listen, this is not up. This is not going to happen. And that's the change that we're looking for.
It's like putting on, imagine you wake up and you're like, oh, I wonder what the water, or, surfers, you all go to the site to find out what the surfing conditions are. What if you're a fisherman? Oh, I wonder what the fishing conditions are. Or what if you just want to wake up and go to the beach, but is the water, is it clean, is it not? And you can actually put on your, you go VR, and we're working with a company that actually takes that data and puts it into a visual stimulation, if you will, and can actually communicate that to you through the lens. So the goal was exactly to, get everybody, as a social company, to get everybody involved in preservation of the sea. So maybe when you go, you won't buy that plastic bottle when you go to the grocery store. Maybe you will walk, or you will take your bike, and you will think about how you won't leave a larger carbon imprint.
We see it on okay, so if you look at an oil spill, you read once in a year, there's an oil spill, you see an entire text-based article, and then that's it, it's forgotten. Where our robots are broadcasting that cleanup years in. Because an average oil spill lasts between 5 years to 7 years, even longer than that. But nobody really immerses themselves with. So we're going to be immersing that tech within the schooling districts, within the community, and once you share that, that's public. And that's where it is. So our systems are basically easy enough to fabricate. They're based on a fish motion. This particular fish, the idea came, well, if you've got a swim propulsion system, why not you just chop that in half and add it to the other side, and then you've got actually a manta ray. And above that, what happens if you flip it one side? Now you've got a fish.
So this guy here actually can swim like a fish, which you saw, and then it can turn and swim like this. And the goal was to also prevent. A lot of what we're doing is not just focusing on post-disaster, where there's a cleanup, but prevention of disaster, if you will. So we're able then to inspect oil rigs, and we're untethered, so that kind of broadens the capabilities there, as well as, say, shipping, holes in ships and whatnot, so that we can actually, try to prevent a catastrophe from taking place. And this guy was developed literally in about a week's time. He went from concept to creation.
No huge
printers again.
No huge R&D team. There's no need for it, because once you've got an easier system to actually implement, now you can actually, once again, take that system and overnight build a vehicle.
It's about thinking, what are the solutions? I know the focus here today is about solutions to the problems that we have all been listening about and been hearing about and talking about for quite a while now, and finally some people are waking up to it, but we're also always thinking ahead, like many of you, about the solution. So the Stingray, or the Mule, which is the system that will actually be able to carry a platform.
So that's our barge system, that's our platform. Very easy to construct. We're first concentrating on hyacinth plant. Did I say it correct?
Hyacinth, yeah.
And basically, that plant in itself, if you look at it, it's a huge industry. You can make paper out of it, hardboard. It's a great filtering system, and make biofuels out of it. On top of that, if you can look at all our systems underneath, because we have individual systems, it allows us to actually make the barge bigger. We can handle a greater tonnage. And let's be honest, it's at that stage where you need a system to pick up tonnage. It's no more at the stage, well, you know what, I'll take a group of people, we'll go on the beach. It doesn't work anymore. You need systems that actually handle tonnage. That's how big the problem is.
And this one does exactly that. Plus, it's the platform itself is something that is plug and play.
So while we're adding tonnage, you've got also a bigger problem. Okay, well, what type of tonnage? You've got plastics, you've got invasive plants. We thought of a modular system that can handle anything that floats above the waterline, which is oil spills, invasive plants, or plastics, which are evident in our waterways.
So as we were saying, we're from California, and one of the biggest problems right now in our delta is a plant called water hyacinth. This is actually the delta where it's grown over so much so with water hyacinth that they're spraying 2,4-D, which is Agent Orange, on the waterways to contain it. It is originally from Brazil, indigenous of Brazil. It is considered the world's worst invasive plant species. It invades about 50 countries on 5 continents, as it says. The problem is that it kills everything underneath it. So it's killing the fish, it's killing the salmon, it's killing the smelt. It is getting in the aqueducts. It is destroying industry. It's very, very harmful for shipping. So for instance, the port of Stockton, which is probably one of the busiest ports after Portland, is where all the big ships come in through the Bay Area and then they, at nighttime to Stockton. The problem is you can't differentiate between water hyacinth and land at nighttime. So they're forced to stop and wait till daylight. So it's also destroying entire communities along the delta that 20 years ago were thriving. Also, farming communities as well as boating communities. Obviously, you can't really imagine a day water skiing in this, right? So it's just devastating the whole area. And it's on, as it says, it's not just in the Bay Area. It is in 50 countries on 5 continents. It duplicates in 5 days. So what's maybe an acre problem in October, by March, it's an 8,000 acre problem. So just imagine that. Here's what Stockton Port looks like now.
That's actually a major hub. That's not grass, that's water.
So any of these invasive plants and pollutants that are floating, we're trying to collect and put into containment areas. Another thing that's happening is we're working with a company in Africa that is making sanitary napkins from the water hyacinth. This is, Sir Richard Branson. He posed for a campaign called Fish Love, where they collected a bunch of celebrities to pose nude with fish to save the seas. So we, as being advocates as well, we posed with our, not a real fish, but our robotic fish, which you see there. But you don't get to see in your program.
And it was a dedicated effort from the team.
I just wanted to mention 2 people who have inspired me a lot. Sally Christine. This is a woman who used to sail with her father when she was a child from Santa Cruz to French Polynesia. And life was full of abundance, marine life. And she just returned from a trip and she said it was silent on the seas. It was silent. So if you get a chance, read her book because it's very interesting from a sailor's perspective. And then, of course, Sylvia Earle, whom we all know, who's been a huge inspiration, I'm certain, to all of us. We had the fortune to meet with her. And I think
that's it.
I think that's it.
So we would be open for any questions.
Sorry about that.
If there is.
Hello, my name is Patricia Engel. I'm an environmental scientist with the environmental consulting company. You can't hear me?
I can.
No, I can.
Oh, you can or can't?
We can.
Okay, good. I'll try to speak a little bit louder as well. My question has to do with the propulsion system, the BIVs. Is it primarily for carrying things like the water hyacinth, or could it also function somewhat as an ROV and carry sensors or visually inspect for the the oil spills and such?
So basically each one of those units, the little ones with the wings on it, they can act independently.
Okay.
So our whole idea of it is that we wanted to create a swarm technology grid underneath the water line by just using the normal Navy system, which is stacking a robot until it gets high enough to actually transmit through a satellite. So in that aspect, yes, we can, but primarily we're doing the top part of that unit to actually pick up the tonnage. But yes, they can act independently. And with that, you can add independent sensors to match the location.
And a navigation system?
And a navigation system, of course.
GPS.
It's autonomous.
I mean, sensors are, it's whatever you want, what sensor you want attached to the platform. You put it on. Sensors, we don't have to reinvent those. So, yeah.
Thank you.
That's exactly.
Great.
Hi there. First of all, thank you so very much for your presentation. I guess as a preface to the question, I really hope that everybody here is inspired with ideas that are not just within the normal confines that might exist through, again, historical channels, but rather are confident in their ideas enough that they are willing to take them and work in startups. And in fact, as somebody who worked in a startup, I'm curious, the area that I worked in was very much not this, but I'm curious if you could expand briefly on the idea that there are, funding channels, avenues by which you can acquire financial support, through angel investors or whatnot, and whether or not those might be different for you all since this isn't, let's say, a Facebook-style startup.
Okay, good question. I'll take that one. So if you have an idea and you want to bring it to fruition, I'll just tell you what the route that we took. So we went to angel investments at the first stage because you have to get your ideas from dreamland onto a prototype. So in terms of Facebook, we use Facebook a lot, Twitter a lot. I actually have met a big chunk of our angels on Twitter. Tweeting them. There's a whole community, at least in the Bay Area, that's how deal flow you can generate. We went the route as, there are grant monies out there. They take a while to get. You have to have a grant writer who knows how to write the grants that people are reading to understand. So that's a whole avenue as well. That will probably come into handy for us on the next stage. We were just burning always fast. You just go out there and you don't stop. You just angels, angels, angels. Then once you have your prototype, you advance to the next stage, if you will, and that's when you can raise more monies. And you have different funds that are available to you. And you can still keep going toward super angels. We have tapped into the super angel fund world, and who are intrigued by this. What, a robot fish? When you tweet a robot fish, who doesn't stop and say, "What's this about?" So we actually have had some very interesting conversations. Even I think Eric Schmidt forwarded our stuff over to his institute when he read the cold email that Simon wrote. So that is a way. And then again, when you get to the next stage, and we're not there yet, is when you can have more interest from, let's say, investment banking firms and whatnot who, want to see real large sums being raised. We've always raised incrementally. We started with the first raise was like $250,000. Now we just launched this last month a 1.5 raise to get to the commercialization of the product. So I think that if you have a dream, there should be nothing that stops you, really. I mean, it is hard work. It is, it's like being for me, it's like being in university all over again. I had a previous career, and it's in many ways, I feel like I'm back in DC, because I was in DC for grad school too. So I'm back in, raising. So yeah, that's the route that we took. Did I answer?
Yes.
I think by and large, investors, yes, years ago, they didn't care. They didn't see an alternative on how they could bank their investment. But once you show them that, yes, it's a longer approach, and yes, by teaching people that have never understood what robotics is, there is some revenue coming in. There's a circle that's happening, which is growth, which adds sustainability.
And I have to say that even just last week, there are more and more conferences taking place on the corporate level and investment banking level that are focusing on triple bottom line companies, which mean you're cognizant of people, planet, and profit, not just profit. And where that converges, that is a viable way to invest in monies, and also with showing corporate responsibility, which is fortunate for us.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, hold on.